think the example, by the way, of the special rapporteur is particularly interesting because the letter that the members of Congress wrote accused her of incitement to violence for the statement that she gave to a Palestinian audience in which she said, "You have the right to resist occupation." Now, it's remarkable because you're talking about members of Congress of a country that is actually arming and funding that very, very violent occupation. And the idea that resisting that occupation is what counts as incitement is absolutely disgusting and backwards for very obvious reasons. But I think you are pointing out to you're putting your finger on a widespread problem in American discourse on this issue, be it college campuses, be it mainstream newspapers. There is a level of internalized bias that has gone on for so long that this kind of hypocrisy is simply invisible and does not occur to people at all. You can look at the fact that you've had 17 Palestinians killed in the first 3 weeks of 2023. And if had it been 17 Israelis who were killed, that would be dominating the headlines from end to end. You would not, you would actually see it as a top headline on every single mainstream channel. And that's not what we're seeing right now. And that is a level, as harsh as it is to say it that way, it is a level of internalized racism, of Palestinian life not being valued equally as Israeli life or American life or any other lives. And that really speaks to a very deeply ingrained problem in American discourse that's beginning to change in positive ways, but we obviously have a very, very long way to go before we can start dealing with these issues in a way that is more fair and equitable.
And of course, when you were talking about resistance, as the special rapporteur was doing, resistance against occupation, it is also the case that the US administration, along with the British and most of the Europeans, are funding a resistance against Russian occupation in eastern Ukraine. So this is, I think, increasingly. Do you not feel, Omar, that people are seeing a lack of consistency and are beginning to say, no, this is not on. This is unacceptable. There should not be one rule for one people and another rule for another.
Certainly for the people who are paying attention, that inconsistency is quite glaring. I mean, the difference is, in the case of Russia and Ukraine, the U.S. is arming resistance to occupation. In the case of Israel and Palestine, the U.S. is arming occupation at the expense of the people who are actually trying to resist it. I mean, it really would take your breath if you're paying attention. Unfortunately, I think most of people's attention spans are fairly limited. Most people, after a long day's work, don't have the ability to investigate these kinds of issues more in-depthly, and they take at face value what they see on mainstream media coverage. And if mainstream media coverage tells them what's happening in Ukraine is worth their concern, they will be concerned. And if it ignores what's happening in Palestine, then unfortunately many people will just ignore it and go about their day. It takes independent media, it takes places like Palestine Deep Dive and others drawing attention to that hypocrisy and those double standards to really catch people's attention and make them aware of the extent to which American policy is deeply broken when it comes to Palestine and Israel, and the extent to which it is morally indefensible for the U.S. to continue funding occupation that is actually killing countless civilians and stealing their land and resources and so on, at the same time that the U.S. is claiming to care about issues of human rights and equality and justice.
Thank you, Omar. Diana,